When the finale for Season 5 of the Clone Wars aired on TV in 2014, I, like many fans, thought that this would be the end of the show. However, Dave Filoni was quick to come out and say that the show was only going to be getting bigger and better, showing clips from what would eventually become the first arc of Season 6, The Lost Missions. However, when Disney took over, there was a bit of a licensing disagreement and a dispute between Cartoon Network and Disney Media Corporations. This ended in the unfortunate cancellation of Star Wars The Clone Wars, and were it not for Netflix, we would have been deprived of a sixth season. Years later, Disney decided to renew the series for a seventh and final season. However, there exist dozens of episodes that weren't made for Star Wars The Clone Wars that, were the show have been allowed to continue, it would have likely actually ended about the same time that it did now, running for several more seasons. In fact, according to Pablo Hidalgo in 2014, Seasons 7 and 8 were already scripted and ready to go. They simply needed voice acting. So it is fair to say that should Star Wars The Clone Wars have continued past Season 6, it likely would have actually gone through a 7th and 8th season, and the 9th season would have been where we actually ended things off. So first we need to start with the Clone Wars Legacy, which was a program following the cancellation of Star Wars The Clone Wars after Season 6 on Netflix, which went to expand upon the ideas of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Stories that were mostly finished, kind of their top-tier group of stories that Lucasfilm had at the time, and they were to put them into other forms of media. So, The Son of Dathomir is a 4-part miniseries comic produced by Dark Horse Comics, which would have seen the return and escape of Darth Maul from Darth Sidious, his rebellion, so to speak, against the Confederacy, and the eventual death of Mother Talzin. This is released, as I said earlier, in a 4-part comic book series. Because Season 7 actually acts like you've read this, it doesn't hold your hand so much. There's one throwaway line of dialogue, but this is pretty much where you need to get all your details. It is canon. So that's something to say. Most of these storyboards and most of these scrapped episodes are not canon, but a few of these are. Next, we have the unfinished episodes, which were released in their rough form animation. The name of these 4 episodes, the arc name is The Crystal Crisis, which follows Anakin and Obi-Wan on Utapau investigating a Jedi murder and eventually discovering a crystal that is it is a massive kyber crystal that can magnify energy. It is actually what is used in the Death Star. Again, these are episodes that I really wish were included in Season 7. The same way that Son of Dathomir develops Maul and the Ahsoka Walkabout develops Ahsoka, these 4 episodes develop Anakin and Obi-Wan leading into the finale. The next 4 episodes are actually not 4 episodes at all, they're 8 episodes. Dark Disciple was a novel which was developed from storyboards from 8 different episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars. It would have been 2 separate 4-part arcs regarding how the Jedi actually believed that they needed to assassinate Count Dooku in order to bring around an end of a war, and therefore they should go to Asajj Ventress, Dooku's former assassin, because she would have experience sending Quinlan Voss. Unfortunately, some, stuff happens along the way. Quinlan Voss ends up turning to the dark side, and unfortunately, these things never end up happening. Now, the next few episodes actually don't have as much description surrounding them as the initial parts of Clone Wars Legacy, because obviously with Clone Wars Legacy, these are things that we actually saw completely. These are episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, going forward that is, that actually don't have anything about them. We maybe have a little bit of concept art, and that's at best. For most of these, it is just a brief synopsis of the actual episode with no real meat added to it. So let's get right into it, because these are going to be going actually a little bit quicker. First one is said to be a Top Gun-like story with clone pilots and clone soldiers actually getting into a bit of a disagreement over which is the superior fighting force. Rex ends up piloting a starfighter with R2-D2, and they end up getting stranded, and their whole 4 episodes is their journey back. It's meant to be a bit more lighthearted. It would have been probably a little bit nice to see Rex and R2-D2, but ultimately, especially for a show that was getting as dark as it was in the final seasons, having these 4 throwaway episodes really probably wouldn't have established that much for us, but it might have been fun to see. The next one actually would have taken place on Mon Calamari. We would have seen King Lee Char. We would have developed more the Quarren and the Mon Cala again. It would have really just been a second, not really a battle of Mon Calamari, but it would have been us going back to Mon Calamari and visiting and seeing some of the things that were going on the planet. The next one is actually a very interesting one, at least to me. It was actually a second Bad Batch arc that takes place on Kashyyyk with Yoda. After all, Yoda does say in Revenge of the Sith that he has good relations with the Wookiees, and these 4 episodes with the Bad Batch and also Echo as a part of the Bad Batch would have shown just how good of a relation he had. It also had some previously Legends creatures in it, so that was always something nice, something that people might recognize from the Knights of the Old Republic game. Another famously unmade arc is the Boba Fett and Cad Bane Bounty Hunters arc, which actually sees them go toe-to-toe with Count Dooku himself. It also has the supposed death of Cad Bane and the origin of the dent on Boba Fett's helmet. It's an arc that I know that Daniel Logan has pushed this a lot, which obviously, why wouldn't he? These would have been his last 4 episodes as the character, and they looked quite interesting, especially since we hadn't seen Boba Fett since season 4. So seeing his growth throughout the series has always been something that I've liked, and to see him in a future season would have been incredible as well. The next 4 episodes would have been the Yuzong Vong, which I know a lot of people might be thinking, well, the Legends army, the army that came in from outside of the galaxy. That is correct. According to Synopsis, a scout ship, a single large cruiser, would have come out into Republic space, and this would have basically been pretty much the same as the Aftermath stuff that took place in Legends of Star Wars. Not the Aftermath books, but the stuff that happened after Episode 6, where the Confederacy and the Republic have to temporarily ally themselves, at least those ships in the area, to take on the Yuzong Vong threat that would have persisted in that specific region. Our runner-up for the final Star Wars The Clone Wars arc is actually a bit of a flashback arc. In fact, I'm not entirely sure. It didn't specify, based on everything I could find, there was no specification as to whether or not this was a single episode or a 4-part arc. I'm assuming that most things are 4-part arcs. However, this one sounds like it could be a single episode. It basically follows Ahsoka being found by Plo Koon, and that actually Ahsoka is originally picked up by a very beautiful young woman who turns out to be selling Force-sensitive children, and Plo Koon comes in with his kind of grotesque appearance, and the whole moral of the story is not to judge a book by its cover. And the final arc, and certainly one that would have been interesting and also added a lot more depth to Rebels, is actually an Ahsoka arc where she is in the Undercity of Coruscant. And according to George Lucas, there is a Sith Temple underneath the Jedi Temple. But Ahsoka actually finds the Sith Temple underneath the Jedi Temple and actually does kind of somewhat confront Darth Sidious. Think of it how Yoda and Darth Sidious confronted each other in Season 6. That's more or less what happened to Ahsoka. And Darth Sidious is attempting to gain admittance into this old Sith Temple via, I think it was Jedi holocrons, and ultimately Ahsoka seals the place and stops him, which would also add a lot of depth to, again, like I said, Star Wars Rebels, when in Season 4, Sidious says, "Ahsoka Tano, mine at last." So he has a bit of resentment towards her, because ultimately, as far as Star Wars canon goes, Ahsoka was thought to have been dead. So, granted, I do believe that Vader would have told his master, like, I fought my old apprentice on Malachor. But anyway, these are all the episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars that were planned, scripted, but ultimately never made. Like I said, a lot of these, as you've seen, I'm sure, a lot of these have concept art, but unfortunately, these were never made. Do you think that these episodes will in some way be made in the future, whether in comic, in novel, in miniseries, or anything at all? Maybe a limited release in full Clone Wars animation? I don't know. Do you think that in any way these will be released in the future? Obviously, the Clone Wars Legacy has already been made. The Son of Dathomir is a comic, Bad Batch is in unfinished as well as full form, Crystal Crisis is an unfinished, and Dark Disciple is its own novel. But all of these other episodes, all these episodes that were very interesting concepts, have not been made. Do you want them even made? Comment below, leave me your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again next time.